Good evening. We'd like to welcome you and call to order the Village of Morton Planning Commission meeting for August 26, 2013. I would ask that the first order of business is to call the roll by the clerk.
Westlake.
Here.
Smock.
Here.
Ritterbusch.
Here.
Ryan.
Here.
Knepp. Here. Keach.
Here.
Farrell.
Here.
Elam. Here. Zobrist. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. The next order of business is the approval of the meeting minutes from the July 22nd, 2013 meeting. The minutes were provided with the agenda for this meeting. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, I ask that there be a motion to approve the minutes as they were published.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded that we approve the minutes as they were published. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The minutes are approved as they were published. Next section is the public hearing section. I'd ask that the village attorney please provide an overview or an explanation of the public hearing.
Thank you. Public hearing is being held tonight pursuant to published notice. Any person wishing to address the Plan Commission will be afforded an opportunity to do so. Any person wishing to address the Plan Commission will be sworn in by our court reporter and will give their testimony under oath or affirmation. At the conclusion of the public hearing, the Plan Commission will make a recommendation to the Village Board. The Plan Commission makes recommendations only. The Village Board is responsible for taking final action on these matters.
Okay, the first item for public hearing tonight is petition number 13-11 SP. Pizza Ranch is seeking a special use permit, permit to allow for a drive-in restaurant at 903 West Jackson, currently zoned B2. Is there anyone in the audience representing Pizza Ranch that would like to provide an overview? If you could stand and be sworn in, and then come up to the podium and state your name. If you could state your name and address. Thank you.
My name's Julie McVeigh, and our business address is 139 East Ashland right now in Morton for the Pizza Ranch. We're seeking a pickup window, which will be at our new construction site off of Martha's Parkway there. It is not an actual drive-up window like you will see at most of the restaurants where people drive up and order food and then wait for their food to be prepared. It is just a pickup window where the customers will call ahead of time, place their order over the phone. We usually quote a 15-minute time slot for their food to be ready. They will come in, drive in, give us their name, pay for their food, pick it up, and go on their way. We usually don't have, our corporation has stated that there's usually not a large stack-up time on pickups. Even in our busiest times, we'd be looking at maybe 2 cars in the pickup window line. So that's really all I have. If you guys have any questions for me.
Does anybody have any questions? Maybe it would be helpful if you provided just a brief overview of where the location is, because it's kind of hard to tell from the map.
Right. Coming off of Martha's Parkway, as you enter the driveway, if you go straight to the right of the building where that little section is sticking out is the actual pickup window location right there.
Does everybody know next to KFC is where the new building
the new location
will be? Yeah, it's closest to Caterpillar on that side.
On the right side.
So when you look up the address on the internet, it throws you over by the bank.
It's a little weird, yeah. It's when you come in on Martha's Parkway, it's the very first on the right.
Okay. Is there anyone from the audience that has any questions or would like to address? Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
Why is this coming before us? Is it just because of the drive-up window only? That's the only thing?
Creates a special use.
Any drive-up window creates a special use?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see a list of area residents. Were there any objections voiced from those residents?
I haven't heard from anybody. Yeah, I've not received a call. Julie, what are the hours are you open till 9 or 10 or?
We will open at 11 and stay open until 9. That is our plan at this time.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the special use request.
Second.
Okay. A motion has been made and second to approve petition number 13-11 SSP. Can we have the clerk call roll?
Yes. Keach,
Yes.
Farrell,
Yes.
Elam,
Yes.
Ritterbusch,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Net,
Yes.
Smock,
Yes.
and Wesley.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the petition has been approved by this group, so it will go to the village board for final approval. We just make a recommendation.
Okay. Is there a specific date on that?
Next meeting.
Next meeting? Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Okay. Next item we have tonight is petition number 13-10 SP. Unique Homes is seeking a special use permit to allow for retirement center at 525 Highland Street, currently zoned B3. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to talk to this case? If you could just start by stating your name and address, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
My name is Reginald Phillips, and I'm from Charleston, Illinois. The office address is 2402 South 18th Street. And I'm the president of Unique Homes and Lumber. And this is Dawn.
My name is Dawn Deeb. I'm the executive director of the Villas of Hollybrook in Washington. That address is 1285 Independence Court in Washington.
Do you want me to speak?
Yeah, if you could just
Okay.
provide just an overview of what the petition, what you're trying to accomplish.
Okay, I'm a builder, and then 2009 I started building assisted living facilities and owning them. We build and own the facilities. Our latest one, like she said, is in Washington, Illinois. We're building an assisted living there and a memory care facility called the Reflections. And we got some information that asked us to come to the Morton area to look for maybe doing the same thing. So we did our due diligence and came up with this particular site with the help of Roger. And we'd like to build a 50-unit assisted living facility. That's exactly the model right there that we'd like to build on that particular piece of property. As far as how they run and operate, that's why I brought Dawn. She has brochures and all that because that's her expertise. I'm a stick builder. If you want to know about mortar and that, I can tell you that. But
Is your facility in Washington of similar size and?
it'd be the exact same size as the 50. Washington has both facilities, a assisted living and a memory care. The assisted living is a 50 unit, the memory care is a 32 unit. We're not going to build the memory care facility here yet, just the assisted living.
Okay.
Does this plan, it shows the 50-unit assisted living and the 25, is that for future memory?
No, the 25 is additional for the assisted. It would tie directly into the assisted.
So are you building 75 units?
No, just starting with 50, but we design it so we can add on.
Got it. Thank you.
How far apart are those buildings?
The two?
Yeah.
Oh, well, there'll be a courtyard in between them, and I think it's like 25 feet. Grassy area with plants and flowers, just like there's two other courtyards in the main facility. You can kind of see it.
Will these buildings be sprinkled?
Oh, yeah. Yes. It's all one story. And in the assisted living, they each have their own door to the outside. No elevators. It's as safe as building as you can get.
I was just wondering, what is a memory care facility? Is that a nursing home?
No.
No.
It's a brand new concept that's coming on, and it's still licensed with the same group. This will be a licensed facility from the state of Illinois too, and its specialty is dementia, memory loss, Alzheimer's. We'll have a special license to help facilitate. And that's about the extent of my knowledge of it. I would have her come up and explain to it. She's the expert at that. I just know I'll probably need it.
Terrible.
So you work through IDPH then in licensing this?
Yes. We just finished and completed one in Monticello, Illinois, and we just opened it up July. We got our license the same day. Very difficult, but the architects like what we do. We can get you recommendation letters from those guys. It has a theater room, and the only movies that are allowed are John Wayne. And I have strict rules about that.
Is there an outdoor recreation area for these buildings? Or
Yeah,
is primarily?
that. Go ahead, Dawn, and show does it have any pictures of the inside, the courtyards?
Unfortunately, this display does not. There are actually, the best way to describe the layout of the villas is picture a squared off figure 8 or a digital 8. When you walk into the front, you're going to go right up the middle, right up the center of the figure 8, and that is all common space. That's called the Four Seasons room. The difference between what he is doing now and the very first one is the same number of apartments, but nearly twice the square footage. So that Four Seasons space is actually a divider between the two courtyards. So you would have access to the outdoor area. One side would have an outdoor fireplace. The other side would have what they call a seawall, which is an elevated gardening area shaped like the letter C. So seniors can continue gardening without the bending over. Of course, everybody would have their own patio, so if they chose to do any kind of gardening in pots, they'd be able to do that from their patio. But all apartments will have access to the outdoors. They will have their front door that they access from inside the community, and their patio door would go to the outdoors. Some would go to the interior courtyards, some would actually go either facing the parking lot, the pond, cornfield, just depends on where the communities are. I'm going to pass these out so everybody has one, but please ask any questions as I'm doing so. I can't walk and chew gum, but I think I can pause long enough to answer a question. And inside these folders, there's actually the floor plan for the apartments. What is different about the Villas of Hollybrook is no studio apartments. They're actual one-bedroom and two-bedroom apartments where there's definition between the living space and the sleeping quarters. The other thing that's extremely different from all of the others in assisted living is the Villas of Hollybrook has one flat rate. Oh, would you like one? Would you like another?
Is there a site plan?
No, there is not. Thank you. What I mean by that, all-inclusive pricing, in assisted living communities, there's usually a rate that you come in with. For example, when you move into the community, you may only require assistance for some medication reminders, you'd like some light housekeeping, and you have the meals prepared for you. A year later, you may now require somebody to help you get out of bed, help you get dressed in the morning, help you with bathing. There's no additional fees for that service. The vast majority of assisted living communities will either bill you on a tier system. They can say they have a bronze package, a silver package, or your billing is based on the number of points that you acquire because of the help that you need. That is not the case at the Villas of Hollybrook. It is one flat rate. The only additional cost that you would have would be a landline telephone. So all of your utilities, your internet, your cable, water, heat, cooling, everything is already built into that price. Of course, if you went to the barber or the beauty shop, that would be an additional fee, but you're not going to be paying extra if you need a ride to the doctor's office, you need an extra load of laundry that week, it's all built in. And we're finding that that's not the norm. That's really what sets us apart from everyone else. And of course, we're all one level. There are several in the area that are multi-level community. We're all one level, which I'm thrilled to pieces because I cannot imagine doing a fire drill at a 6th level. You can't use the elevator. Anyone have any other questions?
Is there anyone from the audience that'd like to address the board? Can you stand and be sworn? Yeah.
Break my. Yes. Do you approve of the whole thing?
If you go to the, oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sir. I'm Ted Witzig. I'm a clinical psychologist that works at Apostolic Christian Counseling and Family Services at 515 East Highland Street, and we would be neighbors. So first of all, we have no problem with the memory facility and the assisted living come in. The only reason I'm here tonight was just to understand how the driveways would work and privacy and things of that nature. So I think I guess I'm not real familiar with reading all these things. I just wanted to just make sure, and you all can do probably have already done this, was just to make sure that that the driveways would all be good for everybody, and then just to understand, so I can tell my boss who's not here tonight, but the first one, the figure 8 facility, that one's coming, or that was your plan, and then the second one over here was the one that would be added later.
Yes.
Okay. Well, our two biggest concerns were just related to driveways and just how our properties intervened, and it does not seem like there'd be any problems. So from our standpoint, if those are fine, we just wanted to know of our support.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else that has a
The
question?
existing facilities in Washington, that's just under construction, just being finished up right now, is it?
Should be
On the north
finished
side?
in the first part of October.
It's on the north side of Washington, right
Yes,
by the...
north side.
Okay, yeah, I've seen that.
It's had a few weather delays. Last year was a good year. This year's been a little bit difficult. And rain, gosh.
Anyone like to make a motion?
Yeah, so moved. Motion to
Second.
approve.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, I ask that the clerk call roll.
Smock.
Yes.
Ritterbusch.
Yes.
Westlake.
Yes.
Rhine.
Yes.
Neff.
Yes.
Keach.
Yes.
Elam.
Yes.
Farrell.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the petition has been approved by this commission and will be passed to the village board for their ultimate approval or review. Sorry.
Thank you.
I lost my board thing. Okay, I think the next item we had on the agenda tonight was continuation of the mixed use. Mr. Farrell.
Yeah, so what we did, we had two meetings set up, and one of them we couldn't make, so we did a little of this kind of remotely. But in essence, before we do a more formalized presentation, we wanted to nail down a couple of things that we think are pretty important for this mixed use, and the primary being the geography. As we have been discussing, the downtown district was certainly the place that we were sort of targeting for some of this initially. And through some conversation in our meetings, Jeff Keach wisely proposed an overlay district, which you'll all have copies of now, that included some adjacent parcels that we felt made perfect sense to include in this. If the idea is to stimulate growth, density, and development, I think that some of these other additional zones, which you'll see in the lighter blue, needed to be incorporated, because if they're left out, it sort of makes them anomalies, and it makes it very strange to try to create or catalyze development at them, specifically the industrial sites. So stating that, what we have here is the existing downtown district as well as the additions of these B3s, a few R3s and R4s, and a couple of industrial and special uses. The idea here, of course, is that now we start to work on the next set, which is the ordinance, which would give some standards for the build-out to developers or for people who are potentially looking to do mixed use in the downtown. The second handout that I handed you was the very beginning of that. Now, this is the second iteration. We had a first draft that got very wordy, and we're trying to peel away from that a little bit. I think probably the final draft will need to meet in the middle. As you'll note on here, there are references back throughout to current parcel zoning. The reason for part of this is we start to discuss and think about a mixed-use ordinance. We're trying to figure out how to make it not overly complicated so that it does sort of invite development and hopefully bring people in with ideas. That said, we're probably going to need to find some variance standards that we can put together to sort of at least give someone a footprint for future development. But I also believe firmly, as you'll see on here, that all of these should be considered special uses so that we retain the right to review them at this board. And not necessarily to police them so much as to help potentially brainstorm ideas with them and make them so that they work. I mean, I don't want this to be a blockade for future development, and I think with mixed use, we're going to have to sort of punch a little bit. I'll run through this quick. Major changes, the things that people will have questions on permitted uses. All permitted B1 and special use 3. Special use 3 is churches, monasteries, religious organizations. Most permitted in B2 with the exception of 22, 31, 40, and 44. Laundromats, dry cleaning, post offices, outdoor exhibits, and painting and publishing houses, printing and publishing houses are what those consist of. Part of the reason why we excluded those from this is simply because they seem to have a very direct interference with the idea of residential living as well. And then special use 13 in the B2, which is, of course, restaurants. One of the things that we're going to sit at the next meeting and discuss, and Mr. Spangler brought this up, is the idea of a footprint minimums, lot size minimums, specifically if we need to have one for, say, a commercial building with residential atop. What should the minimum footprint be? Should there be some sort of a land valuation, or I'm sorry, I should say space valuation there, by which if you have 15,000 square foot of office, then above it you can have up to 4 units, 5 units, should there be minimum standards. I've got a lot of review materials to go over with the subcommittee that we'll start to break into that a little bit on the next meeting. If any of you have specific input that you think makes sense for me to have in that, please email it to me. But what I think we needed to do initially here is just get the geography down, make sure that everyone is understanding what we're trying to produce here, and then get some early input in so that our next meeting can hopefully be pointed towards something we can start to discuss, all of us here, a little bit more in depth. That's all I have. Now, I know Jeff has a formal presentation of about 30 minutes. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, okay. When you look at this map, keep in mind it's a draft, so this border can be pushed and pulled and tugged anywhere you want it to, but the basic philosophy that we talked about at the meeting was to take that business, that old Morton district, and then just add a little bit to it, as Justin said. So especially look at that area down there on the south side of it and see, whether we should cross the street and include some other things, or have we included too much? Just, your feedback on that would be important. Should we include the school parcel in that? Should we include the special use there, the church parcel? There are things there that we could possibly encompass those things as well, but just something to think about, and we'd like your feedback on that.
You guys looking for some comments tonight, or?
If you got some, I think.
If you have some initial ones, we'll take them. I think it's obvious everybody just sat down with this tonight, so we didn't expect real detailed conversation about it at this meeting. We mostly wanted to get this in your hands, but yeah, I mean, on first draft, if you see something that you want to discuss a little bit, we'd love to hear some comments.
I guess I can make one comment. So I travel a lot to Hoboken, New Jersey, and it's all mixed use in downtown, especially along Washington Street. Restaurants on the first floor, living above. And you watch the news there, and restaurants on the first floor and residential living above, in that particular community has, when closing time comes around, everybody makes it into the streets.
Yeah.
And they have just issue after issue after issue with noise problems and crowd problems.
You bet.
It might be something worth looking at is, do we really want to have item 3, the restaurants?
The special use?
Yeah. That, or maybe we think about, do we allow something like that without alcohol? Or do we have specific times associated with restaurants that are open, certain times of the day? Because I like the idea of mixed use being when somebody's at work during the day, the business is running. When they come home, the business is not running. And you have this where you're using the property all day long, but it's not much of an overlap between the two.
Sure.
My comment on that is I respectfully disagree with you on that. In terms of, I don't think this is Hoboken, New Jersey, and I don't think we necessarily would have the same problems. I think what you're talking about with restaurants downstairs and living upstairs is kind of what we're after. I think we're after a diverse mixture of uses. The people who would likely live in the upstairs of a downtown apartment are nothing maybe like you or me. You know what I mean? They're the kind of it's people that would enjoy that kind of maybe livelihood, or liveliness. Let's put it. So I mean, I wouldn't want to say you couldn't have a restaurant. I think that would be something that we don't want to do for downtown, because I'd like to see more. That's what's going to bring people downtown in the evening, is a restaurant or a bar. So. And then the people who are living upstairs in a mixed use are the people who are going to be the seed people that are going to be using these businesses that are on the main level. So that's the way I view it anyway.
When you say seed people, you mean people that would be owning those businesses?
No, they're the people that are they're customers.
They're the core
ready-made.
customer
They're
group.
right there. They're the people that make it attractive for somebody to want to open a business like a restaurant or some other business downtown. They're the people that are living a short walk away from that new business, and that's what makes it attractive to a new business, or someone to want to either start a business or build a mixed-use building in the first place. And then the people who typically live in the mixed-use apartments are the people who say, hey, I want to live close to this and that, and I want a little bit more of an urban lifestyle. Right. And that's kind of what that an urban, that our downtown would be good for. You know what I mean? There's not, it's not going to be like parking at the mall. There's not a lot of parking. There's just going to be, we'll hope there's a lot of pedestrian access, a lot of bicycle access, and people who are actually living in the downtown and using those businesses. That's kind of the way I see it anyway. That's the way I see the purpose of a mixed use.
They consider it a life cycle for these types of developments, and what they mean and why the seed customer is kind of a good term for that. The idea is the person who lives upstairs, dines downstairs, maybe works next door, does business with people adjacent to him. The idea of mixed use sort of incorporates people who want to live in that sort of an environment, and they all kind of intermingle and they create these places to be. The highly successful mixed use will run into issues like you mentioned in Hoboken, but that is almost an after effect of success rather than an issue that I think we're nervous about within development. Part of the issue with nightclubs and restaurants that stay open over late is oftentimes they're a lot larger than probably what we'll be dealing with here. The idea from my perspective from Morton has always been we've got these outlying districts, specifically the ones that Jeff has included in this overlay, that I think make a perfect opportunity for an extension of our downtown. Areas that have right now not a lot of use for businesses except for those which are there, but a lot of land, a lot of acreage that could potentially make for a pretty great downtown area with additional shopping and residential use. I think, as Jeff said, restaurants are core to it. Without them, you really struggle to create that life cycle because it needs to be an equal smattering of office, retail, food, and residential to sort of create that lifeline you want to make it vibrant. So I actually agree. I feel restaurants probably need to be a part of it. The other ones, post offices, outdoor exhibits, printing and publishing, and laundromats and dry cleaners, those had been omitted from a lot of the examples that I had looked up. And we joked because we couldn't, in our subcommittee readings, we couldn't really come up with reasons why, but upon some further investigation, it appears that those have operational hours where there is an extraordinary amount of disturbance at strange hours. Obviously post office makes sense. We all know that a lot of that stuff happens before dawn. Similarly, printing and publishing, there's some chemicals, there's some reasons for that. So we tried to omit ones that we had a reasonable reason, and there's a big list in this book. So I would suggest everyone looks at that too and make sure there isn't something else we need to look at a second time for exceptions to the permitted uses.
I would just add, Justin mentioned one thing we yet to decide is there a space minimum for a living, for a dwelling? We don't want maybe a lot of small dwellings above a business. So that's a decision we need to make. Are we going to put a minimum size, square footage, or whatever on that? Another is, we've been talking a lot about up and down formats where the business is below and the residents are above, but are we also going to consider side-by-side formats? Right. So that's another thing we still really probably need to address.
And we're opening a little bit of a Pandora's box because there's transitional use districts, there's mixed use districts, there are planned development districts where some of these equations are taken into consideration before they come before you with the building permit. What I think we need to do is come up with some basics that we feel like we can stand by and that will still incentivize development to come. And I've got some of those for our next meeting, but just off the top here, main floor, office retail no greater than 15,000 square foot was one of the standards I saw. Mixed use above the residential use, 1,000 square foot minimums was what I saw as something that incentivized development, created density, but seemed to be that tipping point between functional and working and stuff that was obsolescent right away. So I think that we've got some standards that we can kick around in our next subcommittee meeting, but I want this board to be prepared. They're going to be dramatically different than what we're used to seeing as far as what these specifics are, because the idea here is, again, to catalyze some development. And that's not going to happen if we make these things too tough to build, too expensive to build. But yes, we do need to have some minimums, I think, at least for some of the base development.
It's kind of different for us to be thinking in terms of increasing density, which is, right. I think, kind of what Todd was saying is that concern, but that is kind of the reason for mixed use is to increase the density, have more people in a certain location, whereas we wouldn't want that in a subdivision type of development. We'd want to decrease the density there.
So, Roger, do we have to worry about things like fire protection between service for levels and things like that when we do this type of an amendment? Or is that
No,
handled
because
other places?
We would be, if someone's going to build this, whatever we come up with, and they're going to submit plans that someone like
It's in the
Jeff
building
or
code. It's in the
Don
building
It's in the building code, and then the fire
Okay.
chief would have to approve
address,
it.
then our fire chief will go through those plans to make sure that they meet the life safety codes.
Okay, just checking, because I didn't see anything like that addressed here, so, okay.
Mr. Chairman, just a couple of thoughts. I think this is going in a very good direction, and I'm sure all the village board members really appreciate it. We've got a couple of builders, or potential builders in town who are really interested in the outcome on, whatever the housing configuration is. Leave that to you for the time being, but people that are kind of waiting to see what that'll look like. I think there are some legitimate concerns about creating an environment where you get a lot of noise. For example, if somebody thinks, well, I've got this really neat condo, and then finds out the place downstairs is blowing and going at 2 o'clock in the morning. But there are other ways to address that. So, noise ordinance and other kinds of restrictions that might be in place. I think as you work this out, you take a look at that. I mean, we've got Maxine's on Main, and Morton is a wonderful place that not in any way a threat to anybody's peaceful night's sleep. And even Schooners, which is adjacent to some apartment complexes, is when that beer garden was approved, that was a question by some of the neighbors. Well, that's zone B3, so the B3 zoning prevailed, and therefore the permit was granted. But that's turned out not to be an obstacle in any way. So I think some of these things need to be raised, but can be managed. And I'm really pleased with the progress. One suggestion I would like to make, I think, is that perhaps Mr. Keach you might want to review this and an email or something to the Downtown Development Committee, since this original sort of old Morton concept was based on some criteria that the committee put together. It's not cast in bronze. So it might be worthwhile. We may even want to make a presentation, but I think that everybody ought to be on the same page. And if the Plan Commission thinks this is what it ought to look like, then the Downtown Development Committee probably ought to formally adopt that. So that might be something to do now, or maybe as you get further along with it. And the other question Mr. Smock already raised, I don't know that it's really critical, but conceivably somebody would look at this and say, well, I don't want to live over the shop, I want to be adjacent. Having said all that, it crosses my mind that we got to get something done that you all agree with. So maybe you get to a point where you say, okay, this is what we feel comfortable with at this point. We get then enacted, and there's always the potential to come back, and especially if there's no demand right now for, say, adjacent housing, and somebody comes later, then we can always take a look at it. But I know a lot of thought and work has gone into this, and I'm looking forward to the point where we can get this in front of the village board and make an approval.
I do see a
thanks.
need for two specific, probably, differences in our minimums as we've thought about this. And one is going to be what the true mixed-use building is. And a mixed-use building is always going to be one that has a retail or a office or other component, and then residential. And then there will be a residential in the mixed-use overlay district, if that makes sense to everybody. So the idea is if developer A wanted to build a restaurant, retail, and then 3 levels of apartments, he will have standards specific to mixed-use building. And if builder B wants to put a 3-level residential unit directly next to it, it will have specific standards, but both would be acceptable in a mixed-use overlay district. Hopefully that makes sense, because that's kind of what we're trying to lean towards here, addressing it on allowing builders to look at this overlay district and understand how to get started and what exactly they want to plan and develop. So there we go.
One place that did this very well, I think, was Mount Prospect a few years ago. I think it was cited by the American Planning Association. Basically rebuilt their downtown and did really a great job of integrating commercial and residential activities that people liked, and it's helped make Mount Prospect a successful downtown area. You drive through there, it's a really interesting looking place. So I think there's a there's a kind of a model for this, it's just getting it right for Morton, and again, I really appreciate all the work that's gone into it, like what you've done.
I guess one more question. I guess when you were doing your research, was there anything that you saw that communities did to say we want a certain aesthetic look, or a, you almost think of like the townhomes where they're all up and down, and you've got, is there?
We did. We came
Okay.
across some of that, and I started to include it.
That's not really part of this.
It isn't. Yeah, Jeff made a good point in that meeting that, we're supposed to sort of help to define the broader scale of things, and a lot of our ordinances and a lot of our building materials that are set up are done already for us, and they're pretty good. So the idea is maybe to get back from that a little bit and just get on with the ordinance. I know exactly what you're saying, because I kind of went down that road right away as well, which is a tricky road, by the way. There was a lot of investigation in that, because I'm not smart like Keach when it comes to that stuff. But I got pretty deep into it, and I recognize that that's probably not a need that we have to fill on this.
Maybe when we have future meetings, maybe it'd be worth exploring why that is.
You bet.
I'm not sure I understand that either.
Yeah.
Okay.
That'll be part of Jeff's 20-minute presentation.
Perfect.
He's so excited about it. Can't wait.
All right, does anybody else have any questions? Is there a motion to continue to the next meeting?
So moved. I second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, so we'll continue that to the next meeting. Other business? Okay, so Roger, do you have anything this evening? Trustee Newhouse?
Nothing more from me.
All right. I guess the last agenda item for tonight is a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, anyone?
Second.
All those in favor? Those opposed? All right, we're adjourned.